Guys, Tinfoil Tactical coming right to you to bring you another video today about disaster first aid. Okay, this is another video that's going to go into my prepping playlist, and today I'm going to bring you some skills that could save some people's lives, and it's very important to me. Uh, I have not done any prior EMT training before this, so this was really an eye-opening experience for myself, and I'm so happy that I could bring it to y'all. The person who is going to help me through all of this training is my buddy Alvaro. He's former military. He's been a EMT for over 10 years, and he's also an amateur MMA fighter. We've been friends for a long time, and I'm so happy and glad and grateful that he was able to help me out with this training today. So I'm going to bring it right to y'all. Okay. Me and Alvaro, we did a lot of off-camera talking about different scenarios, different things about civil unrest, prepping, all of these different things that pertain to the first aid. And so I wanted to kind of bring you an overview of some of the things that probably he didn't go over in the video, but I kind of wanted to put out there for you to know. Okay. Today, we're just doing stop the bleed training. Okay. This can definitely save somebody's life. But what my buddy stressed to me is an EMT is supposed to stabilize a person until they can get to a hospital and a doctor. He said a doctor has a lot more tools and utensils to really diagnose the problem and get that person squared away. So many things he said take blood work, blood transfusions, so many monitors and sensors to really diagnose and get a person fixed up. But these are skills that are used by EMTs and paramedics to save people's lives. And hopefully today you will learn something that could possibly help you out in the future. Okay. Most of the things today, as far as the examples that we will use, will be in a disaster or a shit hits the fan type of scenario. Okay. And this means that, like, during a disaster, say a hurricane, Hurricane Harvey, for instance, when it's coming from Houston for me, the roads were flooded. You could not get to a hospital. Okay. But after a day or so, the flood waters resided and you were able to partially move around. Okay. So these are some of the skills that you could have used in that time frame or in that disaster to really save somebody's life, stabilize them, look after them, and then possibly get them to the right professionals. Okay. Hey guys, Tinfoil Tactical coming right to you from Lamarck, Texas. I'm at America Combative System with trainer Drew Radicek, one of the best MMA gyms here in Lamarck, Texas. Please check him out. But today we're going to be going over our first aid with my boy Alvaro, and I'm going to let him take over, and he's going to tell you a little bit about his background and what we're going to go over today.
Hello, my name is Alvaro. I'm a EMT paramedic, and I was in the military prior to. Right, I have some experience, right? And today we're gonna go over essentially how to identify and stop a bleed, whether that be a stabbing or a shooting or whatever that may be. Right. So first things first, right? We're just gonna kind of identify what we got, what we're working with. Right. It's a knife act. Everybody, people's might be different, all right? But your first thing you want to do is know what's in this thing.
Hide the tampons.
Oh man, my bad. Hey, this is important, man. Some of you guys need this, all right? All right. So, chest seals, okay? All right. We got tourniquet. All right. Bandage. This is pressure bandage. Quick clot, combat gauze. We also got some shears here. In this hypothetical, right? We're gonna come up. Somebody's down, right? First thing you want to do is ensure the safety of yourself and whoever is around you, right? You don't want to walk up to somebody thinking that you're going to help them, get hurt yourself, and then now you're going to, I guess make whoever is going to come up on you guys divvy out resources trying to help you whenever, you could have just ensured your own safety and probably help this person in the long run better. Okay? So first things first, come up to this person, ask yourself, is this person breathing? Are they alive? So when you check that, you're gonna check for a pulse, right? You're gonna two places you want to check the pulse, right? Sorry, this is a grappling dummy, but sorry, guy. Carotid, right? Or femoral. Whenever you do this, you can take two fingers, right? You're gonna stick it in. You're kind of gonna grip on the inside of this person's thigh. You're gonna have to get up in there, and you should feel a pulse here. Okay. If you do not, they're probably dead. In this hypothetical, they're not dead. All right. Second thing, and all this stuff is gonna happen pretty fast. You're gonna want to look for kind of, if we're assuming here that they got shot or stabbed or something. You're going to want to look for arterial bleeding, which is going to be spurting red blood. Obviously, this person's going to have clothes on, right? So they're probably not going to be spurting out their pants, and you're not going to be able to see that, okay? That's where this comes in, okay? Whenever you do this, right, obviously, situation dictates on on how you conduct yourself in society. But if, you know, shit hits the fan and stuff like that, and I don't know, you don't have access to 911 in this case, which you should call 911 as soon as you see something like this, you're going to want to expose the person, right? And so, hypothetically speaking, in this case, this person does not have pants on, you know, Winnie the Pooh, but you would cut the person's clothes off. This used to be my favorite shirt, by the way, Justin. So, we're going to cut this person's clothes off, right, to expose this person, start cutting, expose this person, because we didn't identify any major life threats initially, right? And this is a dummy. It's kind of hard to manipulate this. And ideally, you'll have a partner doing this while you do an assessment, right? Boom, clothes off. Get this person's clothes off. This person's pants are already off. I don't see anything, right? At this point, you're going to go head to toe, right? So you take your hands, kind of make knives, right? You're going to have to wipe your pants, wipe your hands on your pants or on something after every single time you do this, because if you get blood on your hands, right, and I go in and I come out and I look at my hands and there's blood, and then I'm like, oh, there's blood. There's probably a wound on their back. And I go down lower and there's still blood on my hands. How do you know the blood wasn't at a higher point, right? So you got to kind of use your head doing this. Don't get stuck down in dogma and stuff like that, okay? So top down, right? Bam. I look down, I come up. Hands clean, right? Do it again. Boom. Top down. Hands clean, right? And then mind you, this shirt might have been soaked in blood, which is why I cut this off first, okay? Because if this is soaked in blood, how are you going to, if you stick your hands in, no matter where you are, your hands are going to be covered in blood, right? So you're going to want to get rid of this whenever you're doing this, right? So keep doing it. Boom, boom, boom. Oh, snap. There's blood on my hands, right? At this point, you're probably going to want to have a partner, right? And you expose them so I could kind of see the front already, so there is nothing in the front, right? Turn this joker around. See a hole right here, right? What's over here, right? Your body has, I guess, like cavities, you know, and these cavities are lined with tissue. It's kind of like a sack almost, right? And the same thing, you could think of like lungs the same way. If you have a hole in your back above the diaphragm, right, air could go get trapped in there. And whenever this happens, it could collapse the lung. And if that lung collapses, right, now you have a whole other set of problems apart from bleed. Okay? So we're going to continue on with what we're doing, right, which is checking, right? But in this scenario, you're going to want to use this, which is a chest seal, and we'll go over that in a little bit, right? So they had a bleed right there. You note that, and you keep going. And this has to be done fast. I'm just explaining while we're doing this, and at the end, we'll do this in a fast way, okay? Right? So we kept going. Boom. Wipe. Boom. Wipe. Oh, look, friends. Boom. Wipe, right? Boom. All right, how'd I miss that? What the heck? You turn the guy over or whatever, you start seeing blood pooling right here. As soon as you see that, you're going to want to put pressure on that. The person's in a weird, this is a dummy, right? But hypothetically speaking, your knee can actually bend. You're going to bend this knee. In this case, I'm just going to turn the dummy over so I can actually manipulate this. You guys see this pad? All right? All these bandages are going to be a little different. Some of them have plastic tabs and stuff like that, which is why you should train on your equipment. So be afraid to open this stuff up and mess with it, okay? I personally have never seen this one in particular before. You're going to want the pad on the actual wound. Remember, venous versus arterial bleeding. Arterial, bright red blood spurting. Venous, you could just say not bright red and spurting, or it's just going to kind of leak out, right? You're going to want to grab this. This is like the easiest thing to do as opposed to sitting there and trying to pack a wound, right? You're going to grab the pad. I'm going to say in this case, even though we already saw when we first exposed this patient, that it was on the top side, just so you guys can see how I'm going to do this. I'm going to put the pad right on here, manual pressure, right? Lift the person's leg. Probably in this case, I'm just going to, this is a dummy. And put it through this tab right here. All right, pressure, maintain pressure. Tie this band around. And you're gonna have some plastic tabs, right? Normally you're gonna pull pressure on this plastic tab. I'm pretty sure I broke this, but this, you can grab this plastic tab. And kind of put this together. And not every single one of these bandages is going to be the same. I personally haven't had experience with this one, right? But the one that I had on my IFAK was an Israeli bandage. They had tabs on one side that you could put pressure on. You pull it taut, and you come around. Hypothetically speaking, right? You do this, right? You slow down the bleed. You slow down the bleeding on this side, right? You identified a bleed and you stopped it. You're already moving against time, right? Hopefully this bleeding has slowed down. In this case, it has, right? You're going to do the same thing for the other leg. You're going to sweep that leg, right? And we're going to come back up to the arms. We're going to do the same thing. You know, some people are like, hey, do the arms, torso, and then everything else. I start from the head, torso, legs, and then I do the arms. There's more blood here than there is in the arms, okay? Now, however you decide to do it, just do it fast and efficiently, right? So we stop this bleed, we come here, same thing, I don't feel anything, right? Arms can be pretty easy. Up, arms are slick, I can see anyways, all right? No bleeding here. You come back down here, this is still bleeding, right? And I didn't stay on the leg for a long period of time, because if they have multiple holes, right, which you don't see, you're not going to want to like spend a bunch of time, you know, on one thing, and meanwhile you got to plug another one, okay? If this is still bleeding, don't mess around and you know, don't mess around and like put a bunch of pressure and all this other stuff, right? Go ahead and just put the tourniquet on. So it's already in a loop, right? You're going to put this over. Ideally, you're going to want to do 4 inches above any wound, right? 2 to 4 inches. I would just do 4. In the military, they told us as high as possible, but obviously, you know, you're going to ideally be able to move around after you get this on, right? So let's say that's 4 inches, right? Pull this tab tight. You want to pull this tight, okay? Have a watch on you ideally. You're going to want to annotate when you put this on, right? This thing right here, it's a tab. You're just going to keep circling it out, all right? It's going to apply pressure on this poor man's leg, all right? And remember that thing I was saying earlier about being able to feel this man's pulse? You're going to want to stop this person's pulse, right? So we got this down tight. And we secured it, right? At this point, I'm going to want to check if this person's bleeding stopped. And after we check if this person's bleeding stopped, at the same time, we're going to want to check this person's pulse, right? They should not have a pulse below the level of the tourniquet, right? And the way you apply a tourniquet, right? Every single time that you're gonna apply a tourniquet, you apply the tourniquet closer to the person's heart, right? 4 inches above a wound, closer to the person's heart. Make sure they don't have a pulse below the level of the extremity. Okay? This is done. I'm taking the time to stop and explain myself after every single thing that I'm doing, right? And you want to be slow and methodical when you do this. But every single thing that we identified while we were going through this is and could potentially be a life threat, especially that initial wound that I was telling you about, okay? Which we're going to talk about that chest wound, right? Okay, so we got this taken care of, all right? And you're probably going to want to do this first. This is kind of going to take a little bit of explanation. This is a chest seal, right? This is going to have like a bunch of adhesive on one side of it. Sometimes you're not going to have this, and if you don't have this, you could actually use like a candy wrapper or something like that. Different places have said different things about this, like, oh, you should have like a little flap here open so they could breathe and all this other stuff. This person is going to be bleeding, and this is going to be slick. If you leave a part unstuck, in my opinion, and you're moving this person, this could come off, and like I said, air getting in there could collapse the lung, and now you have a whole other series of problems, right? You're going to turn this around. Hopefully Drew's not going to get mad at me because it's going to be more sticky now. Turn Mr. Title over, and like I said, hopefully you have a friend that was doing this initially when I turned them over. You know, this is probably one of the first things you want to do. You're going to want to stick this directly on the area that was affected, you know, by the gunshot or the stabbing or whatever impaled this guy, right? You don't want to put this directly over the hole, all right? And you're just going to do it by so. This is extremely sticky, right? Bam, stick, right? And you're done, right? A lot of times this person's going to be slick. If you only have one of these, and actually, regardless of what you're going to do, wipe the area off and then stick this on, okay? It gets really finicky whenever the person's like bloody and stuff like that and you're trying to do a bunch of stuff, okay? So now we identify these, we treated these immediate life threats as we went, right? You're gonna want to treat everything as you go, and you're going to want to be fast with it. So just practice. All right. We reassess this person. This person doesn't have anything else that's messed up, right? Recheck his pulse. Make sure that somebody called for help already, because this person's going to need surgical intervention. And you're going to want to move this person. Whenever you move somebody that's in the situation like this, hopefully they can walk. You're going to want to reassess that tourniquet probably like every 20 to 30 minutes. And like I said earlier, annotate when you put that on, because whenever you don't have blood coming to an extremity, the tissues in that affected limb, they're going to start dying, right? But it's better than the person dying, okay? So, and that's pretty much it, right? Stop the bleed first. Identify life threats. Stop the bleed, okay? And first and foremost, safety, right? So safety, pulse, identify life threats, stop the bleed, and get help. Hypothetically speaking, right? What was it? Hurricane Katrina? I was a little kid.
Katrina?
Yeah,
Or I was
yeah.
going to say like Harvey. Shoot, I know you got to remember Harvey.
Yeah. I mean, I was asleep.
But yeah, but Katrina, yeah. A lot of the hospitals were down, no
Yeah.
electricity, none of that stuff.
And then water waist deep, right?
Yeah.
And all those people didn't have access to what happens whenever you get wet and you can't get dry, right? Your skin starts wrinkling up. Your skin starts wrinkling up. You could easily compromise that layer of protection that God gave you, which is your skin. Whenever that happens, right, and you can't change out your socks, nothing, you can get, trench foot, and all that's going to kind of entail your skin's going to start sloughing off just because of natural processes and stuff. When that type of thing happens, you can easily get an infection, fungal or otherwise. Doesn't really matter. What happens in the end is kind of like similar usually, and that'll be your extremities rotting, So in this hypothetical, right, you might have a family member, you're like walking around, something like that. They might have diabetes, which also leaves the person prone to this type of thing. And you start noticing a bad smell. This person is clearly discolored, right? They start. You can tell whenever someone looks sick. Kind of use your brain in this scenario. They might have a high heartbeat, which you'll know if you take their pulse and you just feel like their heart's going a mile a minute, and they'll tell you too. They'll be out of breath, right? That's something that you could easily see, and unfortunately, right, in this scenario, just like the last one, they need urgent medical care. Just something that to look out for in a scenario like this, right? And I'm using the wet feet because that's something that could happen very easily. This could be the start of something like that. The first thing you're going to want to do is expose that extremity and make sure that foot, or whatever extremity is can dry. And this is just stopping what's causing this, right? Obviously, if you're in an area that's like super wet, you're not gonna be able to fix that type of thing. But tissue necrosis can be caused by this guy right here too, which is why I told you guys earlier, hey, annotate whenever you put this on, right? Because the only person that should take this off ever is not me, a doctor, right? And also, because I'm going off on a tangent here because I should have said this earlier, right? The reason why I said reassess this all the time is because you guys ever kind of bent a hose, right? And that hose isn't gonna shoot water, right? If you let that hose go, all that blood's gonna spurt out, and this bandage is not gonna freaking hold anything. Okay. We're going back to the infection thing. Some like that end thing where you feel that person's heart rate going crazy, a discoloration in a limb, or just like a bad smell type thing, and you just tell this person's off. That's usually going to be an infection, and at the end of usually any infection, the person's going to be dehydrated, right, and their blood pressure is going to be crap. You might not be able to take a blood pressure necessarily, but usually a sign of that, especially like in a place where we all play sports, is going to be, someone stands up, they pass out, but they're okay if they're laying down, stuff like that. And you get this person in the hospital. And then actually, before he even gets there, you're always going to want to identify a scenario in which you get this person to a hospital preemptively, because by the time an infection sets in and this person is in a bad ways, when I say get this person to a doctor, that doctor or wherever you get this person to is going to have access to be able to get labs and all this other stuff, and this is going to be stuff that's way beyond the capabilities of someone that just has one of these. This dummy was not made for this, okay? So I'm just going to say this outright, right? But this is just like layperson CPR. You don't want to do it continuously. Don't put your mouth on somebody else, all right? And I don't foresee somebody carrying around one of those bags. You know what I mean? So, primary thing that you're doing whenever you're doing CPR. Earlier, I referenced the heart as being a pump or machine of sorts. You want to run that pump or machine for this person, and this person has a rib cage and the sternum is right here, right? You have to break that in order to do it. Whenever you do CPR, you're going to feel crunching, right? So all you're going to do is you put your hands together, interlock your hands. I personally don't because my hands hurt all the time. But interlock your hands, right? Put your body weight directly over this, and your butt should kind of be out, kind of like you're doing like a deadlift or something, right? You're going to come down, you're going to keep your arms straight, and you're going to push down. When you push down, right? You're going to push down with your body weight. You're going to feel crunching beneath the palms of your hands. And it really should feel like you're breaking a chicken bone or something. It's gonna feel gross, right? And you're just going to keep pushing. And whenever you push down, you're pushing down to, push the blood out of that heart, and you got to let it refill. And when you let it refill, you come all the way back off and you come down again with your body weight. You're not pushing with your arms, right? Because you're probably going to do this for a while now. Choose a song to have a beat to. You can do Staying Alive. That's like what I got taught. I don't really listen to a whole lot of music, So you're going to hit the Staying Alive, and you're just going to keep pushing to a beat that you have in your head. The most important part, apart from like the rhythm, and I would even say F the rhythm, honestly, just letting the heart, like pushing that blood out of the heart and letting it refill, right? So you come all the way down, you come back up in a rhythm that's sustainable for you until you can get help, right? I think the body has like 10 minutes of like oxygenated blood in it, assuming all the blood is in your body, right? So it's pretty much the thing with CPR. Obviously, before you even start CPR on somebody, please make sure that they don't have a pulse before you do this, and make sure that they're not talking to you. I've in my personal life, I've walked up on somebody doing CPR, and I'm like, "Hey, man, did you guys? That guy looks like he's in pain right now," and the guy was actually alive. They're gonna be pretty mad at you. You know what I mean? So, but yeah.
All right, guys, that's the video for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you stayed around this long, please like, comment, and subscribe. Tune in for next week for more content.